Good evening, good evening, good evening. I want to welcome you to another segment of Jermaine Brown's Sports Talk Show. And it's been a while since I've done a sports talk show. I mean, I've done, trading shows and other type of, but not sports talk shows. And there's a reason why I wanted to do this sports talk show because there was a lot of controversy recently, and everybody knows I'm a Jet fan. So, you know, but I'm going to speak today about the Cleveland Browns. And there's been a lot of controversy of why Mary Kay, a reporter who reports on the Cleveland Browns, stated that Deshaun Watson is the leader in the clubhouse as far as being a starter. And she gave her opinion that, he should be the starter, but her source is telling her that he looks good and that he should be the starter. Now, a lot of people get emotional and she don't know what she's talking about. Her source don't, she ain't got no sources stuff. That's not true. She got sources. All these reporters, they have sources. The question is just how valid is the source and who is the source. Okay? Just know that. They do. They got sources. We might not like their sources. We might not like to hear what their sources are telling them, but they got sources. And Mary Kay. So when she said that, now I'm going to do what is called a process of elimination. Who benefits from putting that information out? Mary Kay didn't just make that up out of thin air, folks. I hate to tell you that, but she did. And put aside your fandom of Deshaun Watson, put aside your fandom of Shedeur Sanders, and let's look at this from a logical standpoint. Because my mentor, the one thing one of my mentors taught me, his name is Lou Dahl. He taught me, and I got plenty of mentors, but not plenty. I got a few mentors, but one of the things they taught me was not to be emotional, look at things logically. Okay. And so if we look at things logically, we can see, as they say, follow the money. What am I referring to? For her to put that out, it has to come from one of four places on the Cleveland Browns. It got to either come from the player or players in the locker room. But the problem is the veterans weren't there, so we know that it didn't come from the player or players from the locker room. She didn't get her sources from there. It's got to come from the coaching staff. It can come from the coaching staff, but the coaching staff said that they're going to give an open and fair competition, quote unquote. It's going to be a competition, even though I don't believe in no quarterback competition. I believe that's nonsense. Not a legitimate one anyway. Because if you got to do a real legitimate competition, that means you don't have a quarterback. That's what they're really saying. Um, there's to me is always a favorite in the clubhouse, to be really honest with you. But that aside, it didn't come from the coaching staff. So then there's two other places that it could possibly have come from. It could come from the GM, but knowing Andrew Berry and how he has responded to the statements that Mary Kay has made recently, he's not a fan of Mary Kay, if I go by body language and stuff like that. Not only that, he's already come out and said that the coaching staff will determine who plays. That means any position. They determine who plays, not the GM. He doesn't make that determination. He just picks the players, but the coaching staff determines who plays. So we know it didn't come from him. Well, there's only one other logical conclusion, folks. This is not hard. This came from ownership, from up top. They were the ones who leaked out that Deshaun Watson is the leader in the clubhouse, that he looks so good, that he is QB1 or should be QB1. They said should be. Now they're probably going to leave it up to Monken, but they've already they made their feelings known. How do I know this? I'm going to use what this thing called common sense. And because see, I'm an owner myself. I own stocks, I own real estate, I own contracts. So I know how the Browns operate, how NFL teams operate when it comes to these contracts. Remember, all contracts is, and I want you to remember that, are rights and obligations. That's all a contract is. Rights and obligations. And who has what? Okay. So if we look at it from that prism, Again, let's take our feelings out of it. This explains why starting Deshaun Watson actually makes sense. Now, let me preface this by saying I do not believe he should be the starter, and I'm not picking him to be the starter. And I'm a Deshaun Watson guy. But the right thing to do would be to start Shador. But teams don't always do the right thing. They do the thing where it's about money. And it's always going to be about money, the bottom line. Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco even predict saying that Deshaun Watson is going to be the starter, and other players have said this too. Other former players have said this, that Deshaun Watson is going to be the starter because of that money, because they understand how the NFL works. And not just the NFL, but sports league in general. But we're talking the NFL in this case. They understand how it works because they play in the NFL. So they know that teams don't play the best players. They play the guys who's making the most money. That's the way it works, fair or not. And I just use the curse word because there's no such thing as fairness. That word does not really exist because there is no such thing. Now, let me break it down even further for those who don't seem to understand it. And as my mentor once said, Lou, the same person, here in America, we have two problems. We have a reading comprehension problem and we have a math problem. Okay? We don't understand what we're reading or what's being printed or what's being said, and we don't understand math. And here's something he also taught me. If you can understand addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, you can get rich in this country. Or anywhere, but particularly in this country. If you can understand addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, he said it's just simply math. So if we look at the math, we'll see where it actually does make sense to start Deshaun Watson. Again, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm taking talents and abilities aside. I'm taking who did what the last few years or last year or stuff. I'm putting all that aside. I'm just looking at this from a financial standpoint. And if you look at it from a financial standpoint, you will see that it actually does make sense to start Deshaun Watson or to name him as QB1. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but it makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to show it to you. I'm not going to tell it to you because it seems like people don't seem to understand how this truly works. Even the media, they mislead and they lie. Oh, well, what is the upside to playing Deshaun Watson? There is no upside. Oh, yes, there is. But the upside to whom? May not be no upside to you, but there is an upside to playing Deshaun Watson. The upside is to the owner. Okay? That's who the upside is to, the owner. What do I mean? Let me show you. Okay, let's look at this. You got two players in this particular example, the two quarterbacks. Player A, you got Shador Sanders. He's only owed 1.1 million this upcoming season. Remember that. And here's the second bullet point. Cleveland owns his right for the next 3 years for a total of about 3 million and some change, just a little bit over 3 million. So that means he's not going anywhere, even if he wants to. Even if you want him to be traded, cut, stuff, they're not going to do that. They own his rights. Remember when I mentioned about rights and obligations? See, they're obligated to pay him that money of 1.1 million. Really, let's call it the 3 million for over the next 3 years. They're obligated to give him that money because that's guaranteed money. It's the guaranteed portion they're obligated to give him. Okay, but they own his rights whether he plays or not play for the next 3 years. So the owner doesn't have no incentive to rush him out there to play him this season. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is, whether you like it or don't like it. As a matter of fact, the Four Horsemen, the wrestling group, woo, is famous for saying, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it. Okay? Or as The Rock would say, it doesn't matter if you like it or don't like it or what you think. It only matters what the owner thinks. So then now, if they only owe Shador Sanders only a little bit over 3 million for the next 3 years, let's look at why. Well, what's the urgency of playing Deshaun Watson? Why name him QB1 now? Well, if you look at it, and I use this site called Spot Track because they're very accurate when it comes to the numbers and what is owed on contracts and stuff like that. He is owed almost 45 million alone this upcoming season. So now let's do the math here, folks. 45 million over 1.1 million this year. It's not hard to figure out why the owner wants him to play. Remember, well, I'm gonna get to that in a second. And here's the second point where you say, but after this year, his money will be gone off the books. No, it's not off the books, folks. They just won't owe him any more money. But what they did was all that restructuring of his deal, all they did was push monies down into the future. I do that all the time in the stock market. I restructure deals, push him when I got to pay for a stock or get rid of a stock down into the future. That's all I do. So I know exactly what the Browns is doing here. This is nothing new. I understand it because I do it myself. In other words, I do what Jimmy Haslam and these other bosses do, but on a lower scale. That's it. But it's the same strategy, the same thing. Instead of dealing with players, I deal with stocks. But the strategy and the mentality is still the same. So even though they only owe Deshaun Watson for one more year, his money is still on the books for the next four. Was it? We're in 2026 for the next 4 years. Look it up for a whopping total of over $84 million. That's $84 million they cannot spend on any other player. I mean, it's broken out over those 4 years, but that's money they cannot spend to improve their roster. So it's as if you're still paying Deshaun, even if you're not giving him the money. So when you look at it from this standpoint, folks, it's not hard to figure this out. That it makes sense to play Deshaun Watson, even if that's not what the coach wants. Now, here's why I think at the end of the day, Shador Sanders will be the starter. Because even the owner can't go against the locker room. And Shador has the back of the locker room. They like Deshaun Watson, don't get me wrong. But they're going to follow Shador because he's a leader. And Monken already stated, this is why I said it was never really a true quarterback competition. Monken has already stated that whoever played last year was going to have it was going to be it was a big deal that he was going to have a leg up and basically that's going to be a determining factor. Well, who played last year? Let's do the process of elimination. Shador played last year. Deshaun didn't. So we can already tell you Shador has the advantage. And then Monken also said, now Monken is the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns, folks. This is not Kevin Stefanski. This is Todd Monken. He's the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Monken also said, and go back and look it up, he also said that the locker room will determine whom the starter is. Well, if the locker room will determine whom the starter is, Myles Garrett, um, what's the guy's name? Malik Collins and other leaders in that locker room already told you, well, we look at Shador as the guy, which means he's the guy, he's the starter. So Shador has the leg up. Now, if the owner, which would be the smart thing to do, acquiesces, Shador's going to be the starter. But if he forces it, because at the end of the day, as my dad, who used to own a company, said, it pays to be the boss. Because why? He signs the check, so he makes the rules. The boss makes the rules. So if the boss is insistent on playing Deshaun Watson, whether Monkey and the locker room like it or not, Deshaun Watson's going to play. That's just the way it works, folks. But I think at the end of the day, the owner's going to relent. But he letting it be known that he prefers Deshaun Watson because, again, look at that money that is owed to him. And that he's going to pay out in the future, whether Deshaun is on the team or not. And now think about it. And here's another reason why I'm not surprised this went down, folks. I want us to think about this. Okay? Other teams, Miami, Denver, Arizona, they got rid of players who, and even Atlanta, got rid of players who were making a lot of money, but it was not performing or they didn't care for it. They got rid of them. And you tell me the Cleveland Browns? And Haslam is one of the richest owners in the sport, by the way. Okay, this is not the Brown, the owner there of the Cincinnati Bengals, or this is not Mark Davis. They're considered some of the poorest owners of the sport. But Jimmy Haslam is one of the richest owners in the sport. And you mean to tell me he could not get rid of Deshaun Watson? He could have got rid of Deshaun Watson anytime he wanted to. So the fact that he did not do that was a sign. Here was another sign. The fact that they refused to name Shador Sanders as the starter, like every other team did with their young quarterback. There's no question as who's starting in Tennessee. Though Shador had a better season than Cam Ward. There's no question as to who's the starter with the New York Giants. Though Shador had a better season considering the talent around him than Jackson Dart. And there's no question about who's the starter in New Orleans. It's Tyler Shaw, even though Shador, given the situation around him, had a better season than Tyler Shaw. But why didn't the Browns name him as the starter? There's a reason why. Because ownership did not want that. Because why? If you named Shador as the starter in the offseason, which they really should have done, it would have devalued Watson. And they did not want that because they really want Watson to play. That's why they set the mandate that you're not to name a quarterback as the starter. They did this purposely, folks. And here's the third reason why I'm not surprised this went out the way it did. The ownership went to the man's wedding. And I'm talking about Deshaun Watson's wedding. When does owners go to an employee's wedding? Unless they have a connection with that said employee. They treat them like family. Because owners don't do that. Just like I remember some years ago, because I'm a big Michael Vick fan. Michael Vick tore his knee in a practice. I mean, in a preseason game. He tore his ACL. The following week, you see Arthur Blank wheeling Michael Vick around in the arena, and I remember saying to my dad and cousin at the time, that's not right, and owners should not be doing that. You don't wheel around to help. Michael Vick, no matter how much you may love him, he's the help. It sends a bad message. It sends a message that Michael Vick runs the franchise. It's Michael Vick's franchise. It's not Michael Vick's franchise. It's Arthur Blank's franchise. But it tells Michael Vick he can do whatever the hell he wants. And Michael Vick ultimately did that. It sent the message you don't want to send. So when you telling me the owner is going to the man's wedding, that's personal. Okay? So that's, I mean, again, that's personal. That's not something owners do. And in the black community, there's a famous song. I mean, I'm not into rap or hip hop or anything like that, but even I know this song. It's called Cream by Wu-Tang. Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the dilly, dollar, dollar bill, y'all. People, when they sing that song, do they understand the messaging behind that song and what it means? I don't really think you do. Because if you do, you would understand. Think as an owner. Because for owners, to Jimmy Haslam, and obviously the owner that I mean, because I'm a Jet fan again, so I'm a Woody Johnson guy. Cash rules everything around them. It's about the cash, the money. Okay? In America, you know, they say black folks, God is in the sky. Oh, not just in America, in the world. Black folks, God is in the sky. Where other people's, other nationalities, this becomes their God. Hold on. This is their God. You must understand that. This is their God. And as long as this is their God, this influences their decision. I'm sorry, I hate to explain it to you that way, but this is called reality. And reality doesn't care what you or I think or how things should be. And I remember another statement my friend, my mentor, Lou, would say to me. A question he asked me one time. Jermaine, would you rather be right or would you rather be rich? And at the time, I did not understand why he made that statement. But in time, I got to understand why he made that statement. I could be right and not be rich. The right thing to do would be to play Shador and start Shador, to bench Watson. That would be the right thing to do. But that's not what the rich do. My trading in the stock market improved when I stopped trying to be right, taking direction. What stock do I think is going to move up? What stock I think is going to move down? When I just started just trading to make money and trading non-directional and doing different type of strategies, my trading improved because why? I don't have to be right to make money. And that's a beautiful thing. And I hear people say, and I hear media members say, oh, but if you start Deshaun Watson, there's going to be 55,000 people in the stadium booing. Yeah, they're going to boo until you start winning. Because at the end of the day, fans care about winning. But here's even the most important thing. If you're Jimmy Haslam, you think Jimmy Haslam give a damn if 55,000 people in the stands are booing Deshaun Watson? No, because at the end of the day, you know what he cares about? Those 55,000 people in the stands coming to the stadium because why? You paid your ticket, you paid the parking fee, you're buying the concessions, so he's making money. He don't give a damn because you cheer or boo. You think these owners care about that? We in this country have to start thinking like, especially black folks, we got to start thinking like owners, ownership. He who controls, matter of fact, there was a saying, and I forgot who made the saying, but you can look it up. Give me control of a nation's finances, and I care not who makes its rules. If I control your finances, if I control the finances, I don't care what rules you make. I control the finances. Now go look that up. And if you really want to get a good understanding of the way owners think, read this book, and it's one of my favorite books outside of the Bible. It's one of my favorite books called The Richest Man in Babylon. When you read that book, you'll start to understand why. why it actually does make sense to play Deshaun Watson. Now, it doesn't mean you got to play him the whole season. But if they want to start Deshaun Watson, it makes sense. I'm not saying it's the right thing. I'm not saying that's what I would do. But if I was the owner, that's what I would want. I'm just being really honest with you. Because at the end of the day, I'm the one who's got to pay out that money. I don't care what fans think. You're going to just give me your money. Okay? At the end of the day. Let me explain to you why Stefanski was fired. Stefanski wasn't, because Jimmy Haslam said, oh, he didn't win enough games. But remember, Jimmy Haslam said he had to win more than 3 games to keep his job. Well, he won 5. So that's more than 3. But they say he didn't win enough games. What did they really say? Well, if you dig down deep, he was really fired because of his mishandling of Shador. Because Shador is a moneymaker for Jimmy Haslam. But he wants to get something out of his investment with Deshaun Watson before Deshaun leaves the team. That's what this is really all about, folks. That's why the ownership did what they did. That's why they were the ones who leaked to Mary Kay. I don't need no law degree from Harvard to figure this out. That's who leaked that information to Mary Kay. That's where she got her information from. And J.W. Johnson, he's the son-in-law of Jimmy Haslam and a partner of the Haslam Sports Group and the future majority owner of the Cleveland Browns. He went on 92.3 The Fan right after Mary Kay and said the same exact thing Mary Kay said. That Deshaun Watson looked good. He looks like QB1 and he should be QB1. They're telling you, they're sending you a message. Now, the question is, does Todd Monken and the locker room have the strength to say, no, it's not going to go down that way? We shall see. Now, again, I think Shador is going to be the starter. I think he will. But now, as a betting man, I'm not so certain that it's going to go down that way. I think, and to me, he should be the starter. He's earned that right. But just because someone earned the right to get something or to do something doesn't mean that they're going to do it or get that opportunity. Unfortunately. So all I'm going to say to Shador is, you work hard. So when you do get the opportunity, you're ready to rock and roll. Because again, they own your rights for the next 3 years. You can't go anywhere anyway. And so he's going to capitalize off of you. Fair or not, that's just the way it works. Okay? He's going to capitalize off of you. So you might as well take advantage of it. And don't even sweat it if they do name Deshaun as the starter. And I'm going to say to you, Shadorians, get over yourselves. Because Jimmy Haslam knows one thing. You're going to still follow the team, and he knows you ain't real Brown fans anyway. You're just Shador fans. Just like you got the LeBron. Because you got Shannon Sharp. Oh, Shannon Sharp pretended like he was rooting for the Miami Heat. He's a Miami Heat fan. And then when LeBron went back to Cleveland, he was a Cleveland fan. And then now he's supposedly an LA fan. No, he's not a Laker fan. He's a LeBron fan. And you got a lot of those, like the Shadorians. Y'all are Shador fans. You're not real Brown fans. I mean, I'm not a Brown fan. I follow the Browns, but I'm not a Browns fan. I'm a Jets fan. But I take the emotions out of this because I understand it's just business. It's money. It's not personal. It's money. Okay. And so all I'm going to just say is relax because look, at the end of the day, Shador will play, whether it be this year, next season. Once he's going to play, he's going to get his opportunity. You just got to be patient and let it play itself out. I think again he'll be the starter, but we shall see. Okay. Peace out. And subscribe, follow, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Because again, I'm just looking at the math, folks. This is 1 + 1 to me, which equals 2. That's all this is to me. All right. Take care. Bye bye.